Hey Capsuleers, just started playing around with PI and kind of wanted to test it out in high sec before I start doing it in a wormhole. And I was playing with PI, mainly high sec on Tranquility, and then decided also go on to Singularity test server so I can test it out in a wormhole. Because you know, the resource concentrations on planets are much higher than in high sec, so I was wanting to look at what would I do different in a wormhole compared to high sec. So I've got my character logged in to Tranquility right now, and this is my first planet, and it's a what you would call an extractor planet. And dropping down my graph here, I've got all my extractors set to 2 days. And you can see in the top left up here, got my concentrations down to about 40% before I finally start seeing a white hotspot, which has the highest concentration. And all my extractor head units over here, you can see I'm pulling in just barely over 100. And let's go, I've got another extractor somewhere over here. They need to make like a make a toggle button so you can actually go to your next facility. Actually my extractor is kind of hidden right here. It's the same color. And let's look at this extractor. Here we go. So, looking at graph for this one for suspended plasma. You can see I don't have any hotspots over here, so I'm going to have to move this slider again. To show you, I have to go down to about 37% to finally get where you can see the peaks, where the highest concentrations are. You can see that's where I've got all my extractors. So I'm going to go ahead and move it up a little bit so it's red, so you can kind of see the extractors a little bit better. So on this extractor, I've got all 10 heads. And on my other extractor, which is a little bit easier to find, so here we go. I've got 8 heads on this one. So basically, if you got 2 launch pads, 2 extractors with command center upgrades 4, you can get 18 extractors. And depending on the concentrations, you can put more extractors on the lower concentration if you're concerned with getting a balance of the same amount of resources, which is kind of what I want to do. But if you wanted to maximize how much you extract, you would definitely put all 10 heads on the highest concentration so you can extract more. But I want to keep kind of a balance between the 2 R0 materials I'm extracting. On this one, you can see I've got it set for 48 hours, and over that time it predicts it's going to pull in 1.1 million units. And I actually got to switch over. There. It usually switches over automatically, but here you can see I'm mining this one hotspot. It's like the only one on this planet, and that's at 42%. You can see I've only got this one hotspot. And for this one, I'm actually going to go ahead and stop and restart it so I can extract more. And our estimate's going to be a little bit lower. So we're going to expect to pull in 900,000 units on this one, and in this one. This one 1.1 million, which is pretty much exactly the same as the other extractor. You can see right now I'm kind of extracting in a peak, but I'm just going to go ahead and restart this thing. And it looks like I'm about 62% full, so I'm going to have to come back within 24 hours or this launch pad is going to be full. So back, it's reevaluated. It's down from 1.1 million to 996,000. So the only way to really do anything with this is to launch the R0 materials from the launch pad up to the customs office and then off to a factory planet to process the R0 to P1, P2, P3, P4, however far you want to go. And looking back over here on my extractor control, you can see I'm only able to get in the 90s as far as the amount I can get. And let's go through my other planets real quick. Here I've got Extractor, Extracting Noble. You can see I'm only like on this map over here on the left. It's only about 20%, maybe 15% concentration. And I've got my slider and about 40%, and you can see this. I'm pretty much mining the only hotspot here. And here's my other extractor, which when you're doing 2 extractors on Extractor Planet in HiSec, you don't need your command center anywhere nearby. So if you wind up mining in the certain area and you want to move, you have to delete and recreate just your launch pad and your extractor. Your launch head. Your extractor heads are free, so you don't have to worry about the cost of that. So really this whole set I could actually move around to another spot some other day, and I don't have to worry about being tied to the command center. And this one, let's change the map over to base to show you the hotspot I'm in. Let's go up to about 45%. You can see I'm mining in the best hotspot. It looks like it's moved a little bit since I first started. And depending on your planetology skills, this hotspot might actually be further over if you've got low skills. Better skills you got, the better you are at what you see is actually what you get. So let's go to another extractor planet. Looks like I've got one basic processor here too somewhere. Yeah, there it is. So here I'm extracting non-CS. I'm making the chiral structures here. And basically what it's doing is these extractors are moving to the launch pad, and then if there's any of the non-CS crystals, they're being fed into here. And then I'm actually feeding these into the command center, so I can actually just launch them up and avoid customs office. This is HiSec, and I've got pretty high tax rates, so this launch pad is the way to kind of get around the launch pads. But if you're moving a lot of material, you can't use the launch pad on the command center because you just can't move very much. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick that in orbit so I can basically empty it out. But actually what I'm going to do, since I might not be checking these very often, I'm going to go ahead and reroute my product back into my launch pad. And you do run the risk when you do this kind of configuration. Your extractor is going to fill this up with R0, and once it does, your basic processor is going to be processing. But it's your launch pad's going to be full, so it's basically dumping your material to the ground. So eventually, if I don't come by and move this stuff up to the customs office, this launch pad is eventually going to be completely full of non-CS crystals, and then I'll have whatever child structures that I've built here, and I'll have to move those up before I can start extracting and producing again. But these planets here, where you see the 5 and 6 installations, these are just 2 extractors, 2 launch pads, and command center. And this one planet, I've got a processor. Basically, I could have replaced it with another extractor head, but I think with having the extractor head, that I would have to come back too often. So this is actually helping me check less often, because some of this R0 that I'm extracting, I'm processing it, and then that reduces it by a factor of 4. So this actually is going to be reducing some of the volume. So this will fill up a little bit slower than if I just had an extractor and a launch pad. And you can see by my power grid, I have 100 power grid left. I really can't do anything else like build extra processors until I'm command center 5. I'm at 4 right now. So these 4 extractor planets are all going to feed into this factory planet I have here, and I'm getting 3 of the metals and the non-CS crystals, and I'm building them into chiral structures, toxic metals, precious metals, and then my base is making the reactive metals. So I've got 2 of each here, which will feed back into my silo. My silo feeds the P1 materials into my P2. I'm making consumer electronics there, making consumer electronics there, and then if I remember right, there's my mechanical parts, and there's my mechanical parts. So I've got 2 advanced feeding in this next advanced, so my mechanical parts and consumer electronics are feeding in to build robotics. Then the robotics come back into this silo, I believe. One of these. Yeah, there it is. So my robotics are coming into here, and you can see this thing's starting to fill up. Alright, it's not filling up. It's actually full. Since I'm pulling R0 down to here, I don't have to worry about these filling up. These actually start off full and run empty. So when these things get low, I'll need to add more R0. Like this one is the lowest. I have to pull in more noble metals eventually. And when the rest of these die down, then I'll have to pull in more R0. So really I'm compressing down to a factor of 4, by another factor of 4, and then another factor of 4. So greatly reducing the volume, so I can easily feed my R3 back into here and not worry about this being full, so it can't accept my robotics here and here. Now, as a comparison, let's go back to one of my extractor planets, and let's do a comparison. Let's go back to one of my worst planets. You see we only got the 15% here. Now I'm going to switch over to test server. And let's check out what they look like over there. Here in the wormhole, I have extractors and processors on the same planet. Because my reasoning is, First of all, if I run the standard extractor planet with 18 extractors, I just do not have enough storage to keep up with the pace of extraction. Because if you look, I'm going to move my slider to the same concentration that I am on high sec, and if we look, you can see the whole planet has got way more concentration than high sec. You actually have to pull this slider up to about 70% in a lot of spots to actually see where the best concentrations are. Like you see the two spots here, that's where you're going to want to put your extractors. But I don't think I'm taking carbon from here. Let's see what we're doing. Let's look at one extractor. We're doing the microorganisms. So you can see I'm got my extractor here. I'm pretty much at the edge of my limit here of what I can extract. So this is the best microorganism concentration I can get from this extractor. And on this extractor I'm getting the base metals, and this is a little bit less, so I have more extractors up here. The higher concentration at the top, I've got 5 extractors, so I've got 6 extractors here on the base metals to kind of try to equal things out, because as I slide the concentration down, the hotspots start to appear, and you can see that I've got these set up right where I can get the maximum amount without moving my whole extractor. Probably this would be a good spot over here on the left, but that's kind of out of range. So next thing I want to show you is the extractor program. I've got these set to 2 days just like I do in high sec, and instead of the 90s and the 70s and the occasional 100, I started out like over 200. Now it's like these are all right at 190 to 200. And let me show you the theory craft behind it. Okay, this is set for basically 49 hours, 2 days, and in that time it estimates I'm going to pull in 1.2 million. So that's 12,000 storage. So basically, if I were not processing this silo would fill up in basically about 48 hours. So my first 2 processors are basic processors. They're going to process what gets extracted, and each processor will process 6,000 units an hour. So combined, I can process 12,000 an hour. So let's look at the graph, and let's move down here to about where 12,000 is. So you see when I started mining that I was actually extracting more than I could process in my processors. Everything below 12,000 is what the extractor will take care of. Above 12,000 is surplus. Now you see as I move further over to the right, I'm getting closer and closer and crossing over. So getting past this peak here, this is going to be extracting less than 12,000 an hour. But this will not keep my processors idle, because all this excess that I processed here and stored in the launch pad is going to make up for this deficit of what I'm not extracting. So overall, over the whole 48 hours, I should basically be able to process R0 into P1 at the same rate as I extracted. So I don't really expect my launch pad to fill up with a bunch of R0. So as a program goes through hour by hour, right now I'm sitting at this amount. I'll actually keep building up higher and higher, and then once I get below the threshold of 12,000 per hour, I'm actually going to start using this up. So I don't have to worry about this launch pad filling up. And it's the exact same for this. These two processors are going to handle pretty much all that I'm going to be extracting. So 12,000 points about right here. So the excess above my cursor is excess that's going to be stored in my launch pad. And then once I break over this 12,000 unit per hour threshold, the excess in my launch pad is going to be feeding my basic processor so they don't sit idle. And for each of these two basic processors, processing R0 to P1 here and here, I've got their two products feeding my advanced, producing nanites. And I don't have any further plan for the nanites on this planet, so I'm basically just going to build them up in my launch pad, knowing that my R0 is not going to block off production of my P3. So eventually I'll be exporting my robotics P3 up to the customs office and then moving it to another planet if I wanted to put it in P4, but more likely I don't really get much gains from processing robotics and anything further, so I'm probably just going to put it to a hauler and take it to market to sell. And let's go to one of my other installations where I'm doing things a little bit different. Let's look at this one first. 7 installations. Here I've got 8 extractors down here, and I've got the other 8 right here. The volume they're pulling is roughly the same, I think. That's 2 million units. So in 48 hours this is going to build up 20,000 storage. So I've got 2 launch pads here which storing 10,000 apiece, so these will pretty much run to capacity right at about 48 hours. If I come back in one day, these will be half full. I can go ahead and move them up to the customs office. Customs office, well, this is Singularity. I don't have to worry about money because it's a test server. But in real life, you know, if you didn't own the POCO, if you had a POCO and it wasn't yours and they had a high tax rate, then you have to worry about, you know, paying all their taxes, because you're basically exporting only R0 and you're taxed by the volume. And let's go. So anyway, back to that. Leveling out the amounts. This is pulling 2 million. Alright, we got 2 million there. And 1.7 million. That's close to the same amount. These won't fill up as fast as this one, so if I really wanted to micromanage this, I might move one extractor from here down to here, but then I think I would be extracting too much down here. So I'm just going to kind of leave those as even number extractors. And now I want to show you one of my different setups I figured out which would be best. Is not this one. This setup. So in this setup, I'm actually planning on making P3. So I've got 2 extractors pulling my R0 out, and the R0's going into my storage. See my plasmoids in my water, plasmoids in my water from my 4 basic. They're all coming into here. And I'm going to show you why I'm going to make a particular P3 here. Let's go to our scans. Am I doing aqueous liquid up top? I think I'm doing aqueous liquid. Yeah. I gotta bring up the concentration to show you why I'm mining right where I'm mining. That's the hotspot. That's the best place I can reach with those, with this extractor. And then in the extractor to the south, I've got suspended plasma. And what I'm doing with the water and the plasmoids in my advanced, here, I'm making superconductors. So what I plan on doing is filling this storage unit halfway full with superconductors. This is actually the first time I've figured out these storages are actually better than launch pads, because I actually want the 12,000 storage instead of the 10,000, just so I can fit more in there before I have to switch over. So I'm making superconductors now, and what I want to do later on when this silo is half full is switch over production. So the other two things I'm going to be producing is ionic solutions and noble gas. And what I'll be doing is, I gotta increase to show my hotspots. This right here will be the closest hotspot I can get to with this extractor. So this one will be pulling in noble gas so I can make oxygen. And then right over here, my ionic solutions. There's plenty of it here, a lot of it here. So I'll be moving these extractor heads right up to here. And since this concentration is a lot higher, I'll probably move one of these extractor pads up to here, so I'm working with 3 here and 5 up here. That way I'll probably be extracting about the same amount, because I want to keep things balanced. I don't want to pull too much R0 and flood all my storage. So to show you what I'll be building next after the superconductors is going here, going here, and we got synthetic oil, and we'll be getting the oxygen from the noble gas up here, and the electrolytes we'll be getting from the ionic solutions over here. And so we'll be making the synthetic oil and the superconductors. And what I plan on making is this P3 material here, the Ukami superconductor. So we'll have a use for all of this. And I'll probably just feed the output into the storage. So basically the storage is going to be filling up with superconductors, and it'll reduce the available volume that I have, working volume for my extractor. So eventually I'm going to have to move this P3 off, and here I've got my command center hooked up to my processors and storage. So what I can do is, like, I can move 500 off to here and launch it in space. More than likely what I'll do is, when I get the Ukami superconductors made, I'll move it to just one of my launch pads and then move it up to the customs office, and then I can take my P3 Ukami superconductors to market to sell, because I don't really plan on making any P4, because I've seen the profit margins and it's just not that great. So I want to show you a quick direct comparison back and forth between the concentrations. Let's show you my ionic. I want to move the slider to basically what 40%, which is what I need to see for a hotspot and high sec. So let's move this to about 40%. Where in high sec, there's only like one little hotspot, you can see I can mine anywhere over here and get well over that amount. So let's just come back to Tranquility server. And you see right here we're really low. Let's do a scan. We got the slider about the same spot, and you can see for Noble, which is only one hotspot in the same planet, where at that 40-45% concentration sensitivity, you just got white all over the place in a wormhole. So if you're like me, kind of testing out on a high sec, thinking you can move your strategy directly to a wormhole, you really can't, because a high sec, your strategy is extractor planets only, and you don't have to worry about hanging out in the customs office when you're in cloak, moving stuff back and forth. So you expect to be moving a lot of stuff from the customs office to market. Back in the wormhole though, strategy is quite different. Let's get back here. Basically here, I'm able to keep R0 on the planet. I'm able to keep a P1 on the planet. I'm here to keep a P2 on the planet. And my P2 doesn't, my P1, P2, P1, and my R0 does not even leave the planet. The only thing that leaves the planet is going to be my P3 Ukami superconductors. So that's really minimizing the amount of time I have to spend in a wormhole customs office, because you don't want to hang out, you get popped. So two very different strategies. I thought I would just let you know, because I looked on the EVE Online forums and looked on Google and didn't really see any of this kind of information, so I hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks.